Boys and girls, we are going to do top 5 support champs if you're a new player. So if you're a new player and you want to play support, a lot of people switch to support role thinking, you know, either it's going to be more fun, they like the role, or they want to try it out to try and climb elo. Either way, a lot of support players come asking me, hey, I'm just switching to this role. What champ should I play? I am not going to give you the champs you will find most fun, but I am going to give you 5 champions which I think every support should learn to play or at least have some experience on, and will teach you something about the role. Support is a very strong role, and a lot of lower elo players struggle to understand why support is such a strong role. The reason support is so strong is because you are essentially like a second jungler. Someone in my chat mentioned this earlier, where you can impact the map because you don't have to be stuck bot lane farming like an AD carry. So if you've noticed and if you've watched some games, a lot of support players run around the map a lot, and that is a big portion of why your role is so powerful. So champions that I'm going to recommend, the next 2 champs, are very good at running around the map and being incredibly annoying to the enemy team. This is my first recommendation to supports who want to learn how to play the tank role. That is Leona. Leona is an absolute beast. So first thing is your passive. If I hit an ability on an enemy, like my Q, you can see there they've got sunlight on them. So if someone on my team hits this enemy with an ability while they're all shiny and glowy, they just take extra damage. It's that simple. Your Q is a stun. You activate it, and then your next auto attack will stun someone for 1 second, as you can see here. It's a very simple ability. However, there's one important thing to note, which is it resets your auto attack. And it's very important because, as you'll see in this little clip here, I can actually kill wards instantly. So that's a very useful tip. Very early game at level 1, Leona is one of the few champions in the game that can solo kill a ward. Pretty big deal. Your W is one of the strongest tank steroids early game. Basically, it just reduces incoming damage and it gives you bonus armor and magic resist. What you actually need to do with your W is remember that if I activate my W, you'll see that there's this little shield that appears around me, and that's giving me the armor bonus. If you hit an enemy with it, however, you actually keep the armor bonus for another 3 seconds. Her E is her gap closer. That is how you actually get close to people to use your stun. So you throw your E, very simple. It's kind of a line stun, and it hits a target, and then they get rooted in place at the end of the animation for a little bit. So the normal combo on Leona, real simple. E, Q, and you're good to go. Leona's ultimate is just an AoE nuke. Anything in the middle gets stunned, anything on the edge gets slowed. So little skull crab is slowed here, but if I ult directly, it gets stunned. The only tips I would recommend, there's a few interesting combos you can do to improve your chances, but I'm just going to go through them real quick because, again, I've got a video on this, so go check out my Leona tips and tricks video. You can E, but if you're not in range, obviously, how do you get in range? To extend the range is you have to flash very early. So you spam E and then almost instantly flash. And as you can see, that's a pretty long range engage, right? The other combo I would recommend you learn is simply you E and then you ulti while you're Eing, and you kind of merge those 2 animations together and you just do it fast. Simple. There's a variety of reasons why you'd want to do that, but learn that combo. It's quite useful. And the only other recommendations, take Hex Flash. So as you can see, this is a summoner spell called Hex Flash. I'm not going to explain it right now. It's very straightforward. I would recommend you just look at the League of Legends wiki. But basically, after your flash is down, you just channel and you go somewhere. Use it to roam. It is incredibly broken for roaming around the map. So the next tank support that I would recommend, and there's only 2 on the list. So if you guys know, I've already released tips and tricks for Leona and Nautilus. Go check out the Nautilus video. Again, it'll give you more tips and tricks than I will here. So number 1, Nautilus and Leona are very similar champions in the way they play in a lot of ways. They are very kind of heavy engage, heavy CC champs. They don't deal a lot of damage, but what they do is they lock down the target. So if I don't like this Teemo, he's not going anywhere for a very long period of time. And the only last thing I'd say about tanks is you need to make sure that these champions and you are ready for the responsibility. Because if you make a bad engage, that is not on your teammates, that's on you. And that's a very important thing to know on Leona Nautilus. It's quite an important role to understand, and a lot of your decisions are going to influence the early and mid game. It is different from a lot of these other champions I'm going to show on the list. A lot of these other champions on the list are the reverse in that they don't decide the early game, but often they scale harder and harder as the game goes on. So be prepared. That's all I'm saying. Nautilus's auto attack is really simple. If you haven't auto attacked the target in a little while and you auto attack them, it roots. That's simple. If I auto attack him during the cooldown, nothing happens except the auto attack. Q, Nautilus Q is one of his strongest abilities and one of the most insane hooks in the game. You throw a hook and it meets the target in the middle and it kind of yoinks them and it knocks them up for a little bit. And the final thing to note about Nautilus Q is it is very, very powerful because it can also be thrown at the rain. You can go around the map and you're chilling. Your Q, if I'm about to get CC'd, I can Q, and even during the CC, I will still fly. And then the final point, new players always get this wrong. If I want to CC this Teemo, I don't need to CC him by pressing R on him. I can press R on someone behind him. and he'll get CC'd and the people behind him. So just remember that. All right, Nautilus W is a shield. You pop it and your auto attacks get extra damage. So as you can see, I auto attack and it does 16 damage after the auto attack. The second thing about it is it's like Leona Q in that it's an auto attack reset. So that's an auto attack reset. Your E is another very simple ability. It's a little riptide and it slows. You can actually hit the enemies with all 3 waves for maximum damage. As you saw there, the range for hitting all 3 waves is you auto attack and then walk slightly away. Nautilus ultimate is literally just point and click, and everything in its path, it shoots a little depth charge. Everything that's in its path gets knocked up, and the end target also gets knocked up and takes damage. Boom. So if there's people in the way, they get knocked up as well. Okay. Next champion on my list and the next archetype is enchanters. So if you are more of a traditional healer, if you've played MMOs and you like healing and shielding, you're like a monk player, enchanters are more for you. They are more of the type of support which sits back, heals and shields their team and kind of buffs them from the back line. They are not as frontline as tanks. And there's 2 champions in this role that I would really recommend. So to start with, this is Karma. Karma is a really kind of interesting champion in that she's not a pure enchanter. And when I say pure enchanter, I mean she's not a champion who just only sits back and heals and shields. She kind of does a little bit of both. With Karma, we have an interesting passive. She begins the game with her ultimate, and her ultimate is simply a buff for her next ability. So my normal Q is a line nuke. I fire it, and if it hits a target, it explodes in a little circle. You can see a little circle here. If I alt Q, it explodes in a larger area and does more damage, and then there's an extra delayed bit of damage. Karma W is a tether where you click on a target here, and if you're still in range of them when the tether ends, it's just a root. That's simple. Keep in mind that if you walk out of range, they will not get rooted. So you have to keep them in range the entire duration of that. And then Karma's ulted W is, it just gives you a shit ton of HP. So what happens is if you're low HP and you alt W, the second you alt W, you get 20% of your missing HP back, plus some for your AP. And then as soon as you finish your W, if you successfully rooted the enemy, you get an additional amount of HP back. It is a massive heal, but it can only be applied to Karma. So you alt and then you W, and you'd get a heal there and then a heal at the end if you successfully root the enemy. Karma shield is very simple. Gives you a shield, makes you run a little faster. Cool. So this ability actually works on allies. So you can shield your allies and they will move faster. Karma's ulted E is one of her most powerful abilities. When you press E normally, it's only you. If I alt E, all of my dummies get the move speed and the shield. They get less shield, keep that in mind. So you need to shield the correct target if you want to soak the damage. But just for move speed, this is a very powerful ultimate. As you can see, it can speed up an entire team. So one of the hardest things for newer Karma players to do when I'm watching them play the game is harass correctly. If there is an enemy here, how would I go about hitting him with Q? Well, you don't need to walk all the way around and hit him. You can actually hit him with the explosion from your Q. It actually deals damage in an AoE. You don't need to hit the target to deal damage. The whole point is you can hit targets behind the target you're actually hitting if you strategically use your ult. And that's a really important thing to learn in lane, because as you can imagine, in lane, the enemies aren't going to always be standing in the open. Sometimes you need to hit this target here. So you can use Q, it's not reaching. Well, then use your ult Q. The only other thing I would mention about this ability is do not spam it on the minion wave. New players love to spam their abilities on the minion wave. Why would I not recommend? Number one, you're the support. You don't want to take the minions. Number two, it's going to push the wave. So if I keep doing this over and over, what happens is I have to stay near the enemy tower a long time. And the longer I'm near the enemy tower, the more chance that the enemy can run down from river and kill you because you're further up. Okay, the second enchanter that I highly recommend new players learn is Lulu. So what you want to do with Lulu, in my opinion, is understand that this is an enchanter who is a lot less aggressive than Karma. Lulu is one of these de facto sit back, heal, shield. I'm going to turn one person or a few people in my team into unkillable kind of machines. She has a variety of ways of buffing people. She's really kind of annoying. She's also my arch nemesis. You can tell this is a non-biased video because I'm recommending her. This champion teaches you a variety of ways of helping your team from the support role. But the reason I put her on this list is because she teaches you about positioning in some ways, and she teaches you about prioritizing which teammate to save, because you can't save everyone on Lulu. So let's take a look at her abilities, and then I'm going to go over why I hate this champ. How you can play this champ better. Her ability is picks. She has this little fairy that follows her around, and when she auto attacks, it does a little bit of extra damage. Like a machine gun, little machine gun. You can attach picks to an ally by pressing your E. So your E, when used on an ally, shields them and it attaches picks to the ally. If I E and then auto attack, picks is no longer autoing. But when this ally auto attacks, picks will deal damage. Pix will help their auto attack. So what you can imagine is the faster they auto attack, the more damage Pix will deal. And you're correct. Pix is nuts on fast auto attacking chaps. Your E, when flipped around and you can send Pix to attach to an enemy, it does damage and then it reveals a target. Next important thing to note is her Q. So her Q is just a line nuke that shoots out a little lance and it slows. But it also shoots it out from Pix. So if I send Pix to somewhere else, you can aim Pix in different ways. Why is this useful? Well, you can enlarge the range of Pix. You can make Pix's glitter lance go longer by hitting an enemy and then using that enemy as the artillery for where Pix is going to fire. It's just really annoying. Often that'll be used, you know, you can hit a minion, you can press E on a minion and then shoot from that minion's position instead of where you are. Your W is your kind of hyper scaling ability. If I use it on myself here, speeds me up. But it not only speeds me up, it speeds up my auto attack. She pairs really well with champions that want to auto attack fast. But here's the thing about her W. Her W is simultaneously one of the best attack speed steroids in the game and one of the best defensive basic abilities in the game as well. When you press it on an enemy, it turns them into a little furry critter for an actually scary amount of time. If you max the ability for 2.25 seconds, which is almost how long it takes to die of old age in League of Legends. The enemy can move around, but they move around at massively reduced speed. You need to understand that this is one of the most annoying abilities for champions that need to get close to Lulu's teammates. If they need to land a specific combo and you W them in the middle of that combo, they're fucked. You need to understand that this ability's timing is really important and it separates the good Lulus from the bad Lulus. And then finally, her ultimate. Her ultimate, it makes you big, gives you extra HP, and it makes this little slow area around you. But there's one final part of this ultimate that is very important, which is when you press it, it knocks up any target that is within this little circle. And another part about this ability that makes it incredibly annoying is that it is a very, very low cooldown ability. So as you can see here, 120 seconds to 100 seconds to 80 seconds. My fat face is blocking it. But anyway, there's a couple of other interesting things on Lulu. Number one is your E gives vision. If I use my E on a target and then walk out, I can still see this brush. And then finally, you can check your brushes with Q. Now just keep a close eye to what it sounds like. If I shoot it and that doesn't hit anyone, but if I shoot it and it hits someone, that tells you someone's in there. All right. So the final champion and the final archetype, which I would recommend to new players, are people who like to deal damage. The people who aren't satisfied with the tanks. They're also not satisfied with the sit back and let their teammates deal damage. They want to deal damage themselves. The important thing to note is every single Lux ability is a skill shot. So Lux's passive ability is very straightforward. Very similar to Leona's passive ability in a lot of ways. When you deal damage with an ability, the enemy has a little debuff on them, and if you auto attack them, and only you, then you deal extra damage. If I hit them with ability, I deal 71 extra damage. It lasts for a small amount of time, and then it goes away if I don't auto attack the enemy. Keep in mind that this doesn't stack, so I can hit them with multiple abilities, and then I still only get one proc until I hit them with another ability. Cool. Lux's Q, very straightforward. It's a line skill shot, and when it hits a target, it roots them for 2 seconds. So when you actually throw Lux Q, you can CC 2 targets for 2 seconds. Minions will get CC'd by this. So you need to be careful of this. It doesn't just, you know, go through minions, but it does go through walls. Second ability is Lux's W. So if I fire this out, it throws a little spinny majig, and the spinny majig goes out and comes back and gives a shield on both passes. Why is this useful? Well, you can throw it on your allied dummy and it gives them shields. It actually works on allies. That's a really big deal because you can shield 4 people at once. 5 if you include yourself. That's pretty pog. Lux's E is an ability where you throw it out and it creates this little zone. The zone slows any targets that are running through it, and then it pops whenever you decide or at the end of the duration. When it pops, it deals damage and applies your passive. However, another little tip is it gives vision. You can throw it in a brush. Ooh, look at all that vision it gives. Wonderful. Nice. It means you don't have to face check, right? Lux's R is, again, very simple ability, but it's got some interesting uses. Her ultimate is a massive line where she just goes Kamehamehas in a giant line. Boom. It's just a giant laser, and it deals damage to targets in a line. It also like kind of absorbs your passive and reapplies it. So if I have a passive stack on an enemy, when I ult, so it actually does extra damage if they have a passive stack on them. So the standard combo would be something like Q, E, ult. And I just want to point out that Riot Games has added this wonderful feature a while back where you can throw E, and even if you're on high ping, unlike me, if you're on really high ping, you can mash the E button and then the E will instantly pop. Super useful for people on high ping. Now, what I would really recommend you focus on Lux is skill shot accuracy. Things like hitting moving targets, setting up picks on moving targets, kind of understanding where to stand and then lead your skill shots to try and hit targets that are running around and being annoying. Highly recommend you learn that and learn where to kind of position yourself on Lux. And then an interesting thing about Lux is good Lux players will play around vision very effectively. They will often know where they're just outside of vision. So if I'm standing in the middle of the vision staring at the enemy, it's very easy for them to see when I throw a spell. If I am standing slightly outside of vision, I'm like here, it is much harder to see because they can't see me in this brush. A lot of low elo Lux players, a lot of newer Lux players, this is difficult because they're focusing on other things. But you need to understand that a lot of your skill shot accuracy comes down to whether the enemy sees it coming or not. The last tip I can maybe give you is that Lux animations can sort of be cancelled. So there's an animation here, there's an animation here, there's an animation here. But if you do all of them at once, get a poggers combo where you get tons of damage. All right, boys and girls, that is my top 5 supports for new players to learn. I personally made this list, and this is just from years and years of playing support and coaching people and thinking, if a new player came to me and said, hey, Raisins, what supports should I play? These are the 5 champions that I would suggest to you guys to give you a kind of taste of support. And if you guys have any other questions or you have any other specific champions you want me to cover, let me know. So hopefully this video helped you out. If you guys like this video, like, comment, subscribe. It really helps the channel. And if you have any ideas for videos in the future, stick them in the comments. Come by on my Twitch. I stream almost daily on Twitch and, talk to my chat. Other than that, hope you guys enjoyed the video and yeah, have a good one.